Hello and welcome to the Crafty Pint podcast. I'm Will.
I'm James, coming at you from my little courtyard in Marrickville, which is, I guess, kind of appropriate given this week's one of this week's big news stories.
Yes, how are you enjoying Sydney, first of all, before we get into it?
Oh, it's good. I sort of, it's a bit of a last minute trip, but I've still managed to fill every day with lots of visits. I'm probably going to have to arrange to get a one or two boxes of beer and merch sent back down to Melbourne, because I'm not going to get it back on the plane. Managed a bit of a dip at Bondi the other day after I was out at Curly Lewis, and the event we've got tonight in the Ale Trail Face Off is sold out, so that's always nice. And then I'm off to Brookvale for to check out all the new breweries that have opened up there since I was last up there. So pretty fun times.
Oh, all the positives. Speaking of the inner west, I guess we had the news from Albo himself, from the Prime Minister, on Saturday, that they were going to increase the excise rebate for brewers, distillers, and winemakers from 350,000 to $400,000.
Well, I think the first announcement was a bit of a teaser saying, hey, we love beer and spirits and we're going to do something awesome. And everyone got very excited. And I think, the IBA, the Independent Brewers Association, put a post out and got a really positive reaction. And they must have been like, yes, all of our hard work and campaigning is going to turn into something great. And then the following day, we saw the details of the announcement, and it was just like, a damp squib, I suggest, way to sort of burst the bubble. So I think increasing it by 50 grand to 400,000 is effectively putting it where it would have been with inflation had it been indexed when it first came in. So it feels like, what's the least we can possibly do at the least cost to us to still be able to put something out there and say to people that we've done something. And I've spoken to a few brewers while I've been on the road up here, and some are like, well, I'm not going to say no to an extra 50 grand, which that depends on them getting re-elected, and it wouldn't come in until middle of next year. But then a lot of people are under the excise limit anyway, so it makes no difference. And those that are, it just doesn't seem to address the major issues, which are that beers become too expensive to produce, because to a large degree because of tax, which means it's expensive to buy and people have got less money in their pockets. It's expensive for pubs to sell it. It's expensive for retailers, and this doesn't do anything to address that at all, really. So pretty disappointing, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, for context on that, I mean, the IBA's always sort of positioned that it should be indexed anyway, or otherwise the real value of it drops
Yeah.
with inflation. So, and that's basically what they're doing. It is kind of the thing people hate politics for, isn't it? And politicians for, it's like, we'll make this flashy announcement and then it gives us the opportunity in 2 years to make the same flashy announcement of $500,000 or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, when all of it's pretty meaningless, but you can sort of continue to make these sort of calls without ever actually doing significant reform.
Yeah, well, and if it
That
comes
looks.
about, there'll have been two more excise tax rises, indexed to CPI. Like, it isn't addressing the issues at hand properly. It's not going to make producers, whether it's brewers or distillers, lives any easier. It's not going to make the cost of beer or spirits get any more affordable. It's just not doing anything. And I think it's just. I mean, on the plus side, I think I think the feeling is that there's still time for them to make further announcements. I'd be very surprised if they did, but I guess people can keep the pressure up, and this is just another message to put out there and hopefully put the pressure on. Maybe I should go and get like one of the placard or a A-frame board and go and walk up and down outside Albo's office, but probably get myself into trouble. But so there is hope there might still be further announcements, and I guess people will wait and see what the other parties have got to say as well. I think that 1-2 punch of saying, "Hey, we've got a positive announcement saying we're going to support brewers and distillers and producers," and then 24 hours later, when you see the detail it being so little, I think that's the big disappointment. I think offering that, they say it's the hope that kills you, and there was that bit of hope, and then instantly
Yeah,
sort of the rug was pulled away.
yeah, absolutely. In positive news though, chance recently to catch up with Sharon Benson from Six String Brewing on the central coast of New South Wales. They're turning 12 pretty soon, the
Yeah.
brewery, rather than owners, but they've just opened their brand new expanded site. Obviously, as the name alludes, and the fact they've got a pick in their logo, they're big supporters of live music, from small festivals to larger ones and gigs and all that. The new venue means they can host gigs again, which is great. They haven't actually been able to for a long time because of some neighbors issues with neighbors, but now they're in a larger space where they can have dedicated gigs, more a larger kitchen, make more beer. It's kind of really good to see the family that runs that continue to excel, I think.
Yeah,
And by having those really deep roots on the Central Coast, I think a lot of people, particularly around Sydney, who've been in craft beer, would know them pretty well, particularly for their dark red IPA. It's
yeah,
got a real cult following and used to make it down to Melbourne and things like that. But they've done really well in their backyard
yeah. No, I think
in
they're a
terms of
great.
making connections.
I think that's a great craft beer story. Like they have just put down deep roots. They've supported local sports teams. They've got the music connection. And they have just they're managing to continue to expand. At a time when a lot more people have probably been up and down, or mainly down in more recent years. And I think it's just the Six String story is a really good one to look at and go, hey, here's how our craft brewery can set up and become a local institution and evolve and now get back to their roots in many ways.
We'll get into the main guest for this week in a second, but before we do, you'll hear midway through this show, Craig and I chat about our first Bluestone Brewer of the Month. So look out for that. And there's another segment we need to remind you of too, right, James?
Yeah, well, and if you want to nominate at any more Bluestone Youth Breweries of the Month, you just jump to craftypint.com/Bluestone. And also, we're all, constantly seeking more nominations for the Have You Done a Rallings, which is celebrating good beer citizens all over Australia. And for that one, there's a form at craftypint.com/Rallings, RALLINGS. I know the first winners of the Have You Done Rallings, Buddy Brewing, they were really chuffed with the win. They said it made them feel even more like part of the industry they've only been a part of for around a year. So yeah, get your nominations in for Good Beer Citizen. We had some really great nominations already. But yeah, main chat this week. Well, we were down at Banks just the other day.
Yeah, we jumped in the car and headed to lovely Seaford by the sea, and chatted with Chris and Penny Farmer about their brewery. Listeners will know it's a nice little follow up, I think, to Shapeshifter last week because they're both quote unquote hype breweries. There's a lot of love for them, but yeah, Chris and Penny, they've always done things their own way. I think they've built the business very organically.
Yeah.
They're really quick on new styles and always interested in basically, I mean, Chris's words, just getting better at all times. He doesn't believe you can ever perfect beer. He just always wants it to be that little bit better and to change everything they do. And he's really open about that as well, which I really liked for both of them.
Well, I think it's like with Shapeshifter, you sort of strip away the hype and you realise there's these very sort of humble people behind it, who just try to do the best they can. And starting out, they launched the brewery pretty much the same time they launched their family. You know what I mean? And it's you can look at Cake Eater and Citra Fields and all these other beers and the collabs they do, but at heart, it's a small family business that's just been evolving and changing and learning as they go. So that's coming up after the short break. And before then, though, Will.
So enjoy the episode, and if you enjoy it, make sure you like and subscribe and review us. Cheers.
Cheers.
Hey breweries, imagine if people paid you for the opportunity to promote your business. That's the power of a great merch strategy. It's a revenue stream and advertising platform all in one. But you make beer, not t-shirts, so where do you start? That's where OPM Design come in. They've been in business for over 10 years and have helped thousands of customers, including lots of breweries, with their merchandise needs. Whether it's t-shirts, hats, hoodies or stubby coolers, OPM Design can offer you the price, quality and service you need. Whatever your project, OPM Design can help you get the best results from your merch budget, from artwork and design to printing and packaging, ensuring your brand is presented with the same care and consideration as every can of your beer. Find OPM Design on the Crafty Pint business directory or hit them up at opmdesign.com.au. And now, back to the podcast.
Chris and Penny, thank you for joining us on the podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks. Hey.
So let's start off with, why don't you tell us who or what Banks Brewing is?
All right. So Banks Brewing is, well, it's us. It's our dog, I suppose, also. We started the brewery back in 2016. We're terrible at coming up with names. So just decided that we liked our dog's name. So then, we would roll that into a business, keep it sort of within the family. But yeah, we've been going for 16 years. 16 years, sorry. I've been going for nearly 9 years. Since
Feels like
26
16 years.
Yeah, it actually does. Yeah. 16 great years. Yeah, we're, pretty small brewery, a small team here. We love to have a lot of fun and, make the beer we like to drink and, sort of don't steer too far away from that. It's not all about money for us. Obviously it's a business, so there's that. But yeah, just like to, we love this industry and love being a part of it. So it's great.
And if there is like a Banks ethos or sort of guiding philosophy, what might that be?
We can always make it better.
And then on a serious note, probably quality first and fun.
Yeah.
So we're often happy to take, the more expensive, better fruit, knowing that it'll, really drive the product going. Look, quality is always what has sort of driven what we've done, and we'll deal with the cost and the things at the end. But yeah, that's sort of always been the way we've gone.
Yeah.
It's interesting you mentioned fruit there, because you were saying that you were both into wine and that you weighed up maybe going into wine before beer.
Yeah, Penny's all about the fruit beers, but
Okay.
Yeah, I'm
you can take that
I'm
one.
the guide for that one. As I said, I'm not always a big lager lover,
Yeah.
so I'm always the taster on the fruited sours or anything we add fruit to. That's sort of where I put my hand up. That's the ones when we're traveling, tasting beers. I go and try all. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I go try all the crazy ones, and Chris sticks to the sort of standard. Yeah.
Are they beers that, when you say the ones that don't sell, have they been beers that, have there been certain beers that have always been difficult to sell, or is that more a market these days where things have maybe
A little of
contracted
both.
a bit? Yeah.
They definitely used to sell better than they did.
Yeah.
Pretty much most of our kettle sours and stuff like that these days, if everything we make, 70% of it would probably go to like Queensland,
Okay.
to the warmer states.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was obviously a lot of hype around the heavily fruited sours and stuff like that for a while, and we sort of pushed on that. I mean, for us personally, I think we all know there's one brewery in Australia that's doing extremely well with them. But yeah, for us, it's not a big market. Like our batch sizes have just declined. Small. We still do them because we like to have something for everyone at the tap room and available. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's not a hazy beer, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So you do have a bit of a national presence. I think there'll be Banks fans all over the country, but they might not know so much about where we are right now in Seaford recording. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the area and why you chose it?
Yep. It's a pretty simple one why we chose it. This factory here where we're actually is my dad's. So we lease it at full clip, so there's no discount there, unfortunately.
Oh, come
As
on,
much
Dad.
No, tell me
It's
the-
tough times for
I
brewers
know,
these
I know,
days.
I know. He helped us out in the early year or so,
Yeah.
so he keeps reminding me of that. But so that was obviously one part of it. So it was easier for us to get a lease because he was moving out of it. We're a previous business that I was in with him at the time. But then also because of that, we looked at the area, and at that time there was nothing here.
Yeah.
There was no brewery or not really even any bars in Frankston that would sell craft beer.
Yeah.
Closest place was Mornington.
Yeah.
Dayton were in the process of setting up around the corner, or it was very similar timing.
Yeah, Boat Rocker wouldn't have had their barrel room back then,
No,
I
I
don't think,
don't
and even
think
they're a
so.
bit further.
Yeah, so there just wasn't a lot. It was just
Yeah.
a very untapped market that we.
And just for people who aren't from there, so you're kind of, I guess, the top end of where the peninsula starts, sort
Yep.
of southeastern suburbs makes the peninsula.
yeah, we
Good
go
branding
mine.
for Seaford.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
Start of the
gateway,
peninsula.
The gateway to
We're the
yeah.
gateway of the peninsula, but if you're from the peninsula, many people, and even like our cousins, they continue to remind us we are not. We never claimed it, ever, right? So, yeah.
And look, being the start of the peninsula, that it's just synonymous with good quality wine, good quality produce. So I think it just made sense. One, that we live down here, but being, right at the edge of that so that we can, source all that. And
Yeah, of course. But
and-
and location wise, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. Like we are literally one of the last towns you can get Melbourne Metro shipping in. So that's pretty handy with trucks. We can make our way down the peninsula very easily or to the city. And that was a big focus for us in the early years. There was after that first year or so, there was some breweries popping up down the peninsula. So we decided to sort of focus a little bit more towards town for a while and in the southeast a bit more than some sort of doing down there. And now that's sort of flipped a little bit and we are putting a lot more attention down to the peninsula. And
Yeah, there's probably a lot more places to sell craft beer into on the peninsula now than there would have been
100%.
9 years ago.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
it would have been really hot. Few bars, and I guess you're talking about sort of golf clubs and hotels. They would have had no interest, I'd
Exactly
imagine, in
right.
local
Yeah.
beer back then.
and even a lot of wineries. We've got a lot of good relationships with a lot of the wineries around here, and now is a very good time at the moment because they all have vintage. So we're doing a lot of wine and beer sort of.
Contra
Yeah.
swaps.
Yeah.
So it's nice. It's nice that they want to drink our stuff
Yeah.
and we want to drink theirs. So
Yeah.
we always have loved food and wine and beer, and we always wanted to do something. And I think here just at the time it just sort of worked.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we are in an industrial area, but we're talking
High tech
before-
place. It's not the most romantic of names. Is it?
But we're talking before when you opened up, it was more as a cellar door, and people just sort of really wanted you to open. Did that surprise you, or
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was, as we were talking about, we were like, okay, we love the whole cellar door experience of wineries. We also love the hours that works and not having to work hospitality bar hours. So we sort of implemented that in our front room. Thought we'd have the brewery out the back. We'd do cellar door sales during the week and weekends, have one person in there that, could run it all, yada, yada. And then, people were just hanging out in the office with us. It's very strange. Like these random couches that I found off. There wasn't even Marketplace back then, so I don't know what.
In
Gumtree.
Gumtree.
Yeah. Just had a couch sitting in there with a little kegerator, and people would just hang out, and I'd literally have to kick them out at 9 o'clock on a Friday. I'd be like, guys, I'm gonna go home now. They're just so comfortable
Yeah.
drinking the beer.
But it was literally like a reception to a to a warehouse
To a
space. It really
factory,
was.
yeah.
Yeah.
And quite a tiny one. Yeah. It was a very cozy little space in there, and there would be multiple Fridays where there would be 25 people in there,
Yeah.
and it's like,
And you
we got to
couldn't-
do something.
And you couldn't take them into the brewery because that was still like taking shape, and you were sharing the space.
Yeah. We shared for the first year and a half to 2 years with my brother-in-law, which was a real benefit for us as a business. But he had the front half, we had the back half, which in hindsight, again, terrible planning.
Should have done it the
Should
other way
have
around.
been the But it worked for drainage reasons
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So you had to go through his area to get to us, and then at that stage, to get to us, it was probably a 20th of the factory was the brewery in the back corner.
Yeah.
Majority of the space was used for me to play basketball. So we had a ring in there, and
Yeah.
anyone that came in, like any reps or anything, we'd shoot hoops.
Yeah.
And I was pretty good at basketball back then, but I haven't shot for
Run
a
out of
while.
time now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
terrible now.
Well, and just people, I guess, listening in rather than watching, like we're sat in one of sort of two outdoor beer gardens. There's a big venue inside now. How does it sort of evolve to this stage? Because I mean, was that something you realised early on you had to cater to, and how quickly have you sort of taken over more and more of the?
It's definitely been a slow progression. So from having, your 20 so people in the front going, we can't keep this up. We need more space, more people are arriving. It was a long time with council trying to get that over the line, which you hear from everyone. That's when we sort of said to the other people, look, we really need the space for a cellar door or a proper tap room. And we were being sort of heading to the States at least once a year at that stage for inspiration. And their factory style beer halls are great.
Yeah.
They've nailed that. And we're like, look, we don't have to go super fancy. Maybe we just sort of do that American style.
Yeah.
This is a working factory. It's not gold taps and beautiful bathrooms. Let's just come here to drink, and hopefully the vibe will be what, brings people back. And that's sort of been the progression. We've always sort of built out a little section, and then, okay, it's getting busier. We'll expand a bit more. So it's definitely been a slowly encroaching on the car park as COVID rules allowed us, putting in a playground. So yes, it's definitely been a piece at a time.
Yeah. I think I don't reckon I probably come down every couple of years, and there's always something as new, whether it's the rebrand or the color scheme or the furniture inside or where the big screen. It's sort of, is that something that's had to happen just because you've been getting bigger, or is it trying to adapt to keep the locals interested, or what's sort of driven that?
Yes, to all of that. I think I get bored a lot, so I like change.
Yeah.
But one of the main things is we have a lot of regulars, and I'm a big believer of we want those people to keep coming back, so we want to keep it fresh. So little things like new tables or new booths or TVs and stuff like that. they make people come in and go, oh, there's something new and fresh, and if that makes them go, oh, they come back maybe 2 or 3 more times within that sort of 3-month period, because it feels newer and it feels fresher. And there's, especially these days, a lot more competition around here, and a lot of places opening, and we're just trying to keep, you got to keep relevant in this industry, but I think keeping relevant in hospitality and everything is part of it too. So.
And are you mostly locals in terms of people coming to the tap room, or are you going to be a tourist, whether that's from the rest of Melbourne or from further afield coming through? I'd imagine you would have that appeal to, if beer lovers coming from interstates like Banks would be high on their list.
Yeah, we do. We've got we've probably got a lot less people traveling than what we used to.
Yeah.
When beer was really hot, but we definitely still get weekly or fortnightly brewery tours and stuff like that. But there's a lot of locals, a lot of locals. But it's good. I love it when I see someone's travelled from interstate, and we're not near that much, so they've caught the train down or whatever, and then
a fair train
and
ride
then, and then walked through that.
It's an interesting little cut through, isn't it?
I would just recommend to anyone doing that trip, don't do the cut through. Just go over the bridge.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, 'cause I
You'll know if you've done that. You'll understand what that means.
I was like, are we definitely going the right way here? Yeah.
So,
But
no, it's cool.
It's not too far away. That's the main thing. The train station is not too far away from the
we're
brewery.
very accessible. But just pick your routes.
And you're actually coming up on 9th anniversary. You also have children that are 10 and 7. How did that go? You starting a family and starting a business that you'd never sort of been involved in before, aside from, I guess, the home brewing. Like, you knew how to make beer, but you didn't really know what you were getting yourselves into.
Yeah, tough and good. I think one of the hardest things is actually working with your partner, because when you go home, it's really hard to get that time to switch off. Normally you might go, hey, how was your day? Oh, this happened, it was horrible. But it's like, remember, we need to go over those figures. Remember, the insurance guy's waiting for tomorrow. So I find that part is quite challenging. In terms of the kids, it's been sort of great having them along for the ride. And that's another way that the tap room's evolved. Originally we had a tiny little kids play area, and now we've got a basketball ring and a playground, and the whole business has kind of adapted as our family's grown as well. But it's definitely been an interesting ride, but a fun one.
Yeah, for sure.
And how do you sort of divide the labour penny? What's your background? Sorry?
So I'm a chartered accountant. So I do all the accounting, all the excise. I've also been lumped with all the administration, which is just gotten more and more every year. That's something that has just container scheme, that's hours of work every month just to make sure you're reporting that correctly. So I think as we've grown, it's not necessarily more sales or more customers or more staff that's created a lot more work. It's all these extra sort of things that are going on here and there. So definitely I sort of stick to the office inside and those sorts of things. Love hitting up a beer festival and pouring beers every now and then, but I sort of stick to that side, and Chris is probably on the creative side of things in terms of developing recipes and then sort of really managing staff.
Are you on the tools much these days, Chris?
Not really. No, I occasionally jump on the canning line if I need to, or something like that. But I probably should be more, because I kind of forget how to use everything. But no, I still write all the recipes and stuff like that. Which, but I miss it a little bit, to be honest. I love a brew.
Come and do the Rockstar brewing shift.
It's good because you don't have to clean.
I love it. I love the smell of the mashing, but I don't want to do cleaning. So it's good and bad.
Now we'll have a good chat about sort of the styles that you become known for and that you enjoy after the break. But I know this is kind of old news, but you did sort of change from Mr. Banks to Banks a few years ago, and it involved a brush with a bit of a Hollywood legend. And some people might know this story, some don't, but we'd love to, hear it again. So how did that all come about?
So we had a beer called McConaughey's that we've been making for quite a while. We're very big on pun names and things to do with movies, and just as we said before, having fun with it. And then I think it was 2020 or 2019, I can't remember. I was on my way to Gabs or the ABAs or something like that, and our bar manager sent me an email saying, we've made it. And I was like, I read it and I was like, well, we haven't made it. horrible if this is true. And it was a cease and desist from what turned out to be Matthew McConaughey's lawyers. Thought it was a joke.
Or a
Sent it,
scam, man.
Yeah.
sent it to our lawyer. He looked over. He's like, "No, it looks pretty real." Spoke with them. It turns out it was real. And then there was a whole thing of a back and forth. We were having communication with them. They're actually really good about it. They basically just said that Matt doesn't like people making money off his brand.
Yeah.
But-
You were like, we're not making any
Oh,
money.
oh my god,
No,
we're tiny.
Yeah. So, and they made connections. It wasn't just the name. There was
Yeah.
like a Lincoln on the can and
Yeah.
stuff like this. So yeah, it was probably a little close to home in that sense. But we made. We had chats with them, and we were gonna go down the path of working kind of with them in giving money to his charity.
Mhm.
But then it all fell over at the last minute while his lawyers were writing up the agreements for some reason to do with wild turkey.
Yeah.
But in saying that,
Yeah.
we have been to the States a couple of times since and been to Austin, and there is a brewery over there that makes a McConaughey's.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
they didn't make it when we started.
Yeah.
But they mustn't have a Lincoln lawyer.
I don't know,
Like it
or
in the-
maybe they have something like
Or
he
they
lives in
may have
Austin.
endorsed it.
He
in a
lives in
way.
Austin, so
Yeah.
maybe there's something there.
Or they may have done what we were planning to do,
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
20 cents of every can sale gets donated to his homeless charity.
Yeah,
Maybe they've
which is what we
struck
were
up-
going to do.
yeah,
it was
some
going
sort
to
of
be
agreement.
to do with youth homelessness.
And
Which
did
is
you get to
massive.
hang out with him? That's the main thing.
No, I sent him a case of beer because I asked his lawyer if he would be interested, and he said he'd
Yeah.
love to try it.
Yeah.
So I sent it to this address in Austin,
Yeah.
which he said was his lawyer's address. But his
Okay.
lawyer lived in New York,
Yeah.
so it was apparently his Austin farm. But if you look it up, I looked it up on Google Maps, and it is an
You drove there.
enormous place,
yeah.
and it is right next to a private airfield. So
Okay.
Wow.
Who knows?
sweet.
So we may have his address.
yeah,
Yeah,
so I
yeah.
might be able to find the address if you really want to know.
Just check the stalking
Yeah.
laws in Texas. before
Yeah,
you head
yeah.
over
Actually,
there.
I probably wouldn't do it in Texas. Yeah, but so that's started the whole thing with for a long time, the brewery was obviously known as Mr. Banks.
Yeah.
It's a name that I sort of settled on
Yeah.
at the start. I was never really in love with it, but I think it did help us a lot at the start. A lot of people, I think it's kind of worked with a little older generation and younger generation, like people
Because it's
who
the
Mary
Mighty
Poppins.
Ducks
Yeah.
reference.
So Banks, our dog, is named after Adam Banks, who's a character
Yeah.
in the Mighty Ducks.
Yeah.
So, the name means absolutely nothing. But
But before the makes of the Mighty Ducks start coming after you, going, hang on, we've got 5 years worth.
Yeah. So, but then this whole lawsuit thing was sort of happening, and we'd just gone through the process of getting McConaughey's into printed cans, which we'd spent. I think it was literally like 3 days before we got the printed cans, and I was so happy with them. I was like, literally, we canned it that day. As soon as they rocked up, I was sitting at home like, this is so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We finally done it, because it was one of our first printed cans that wasn't like a generic one that we wrap stickers around and yada yada, which it was a big deal for us back then.
Yeah.
And you've been working to perfect
yeah.
that beer, like you
Yeah.
just been
Yeah.
involved.
Yeah,
over
and it was
time
getting
as
some
well,
good traction. Like people were really enjoying it, and then that happened. So when we sat down and like, what are we going to do about this? It's obviously we can't keep making it. We were like, okay, well, we need to change the name.
Yeah.
We were probably stepping over the line with the name that we chose, and we went to All Right,
Yeah.
which wasn't
With 3
spelled.
eyes.
Yeah, with 3 eyes.
Yeah.
Which didn't last in the end for other reasons. Not because it just, I don't know if people didn't know if it was the same beer or a different beer. It just didn't really work out, so we dropped it in the end. But when we were going through that whole process, I couldn't pay for another batch of cans to be printed.
Yeah.
That the only thing changed on it was just the name from McConaughey's to All Right, and the same design, everything. Because it's like Vizzy, the way they charge cans, it's per color.
It's a very
So it became very
big
expensive.
investment to change
So-
it. And
Then I just started really, and these guys didn't want to do it. Like Penny said no. Morgs, who's the head of sales and been with us since, I don't know, first year or second year, he was like, nah, we can't do it. But I was like, stuff it.
Yeah.
I hit the say here,
Yeah.
we're doing it. So I wanted to drop the Mister.
Yeah.
There was a lot of things, a lot of reasons behind it, but that was the timing for me that I was like, okay, I can deal with us changing the logo and then the name at the bottom of the can.
Yeah.
So, I think it was a long process. We still get called Mr. Banks by people all the time. It probably has something to do with the fact that we're legally still known as Mr. Banks because we didn't go through the name change process in that. So Mr. Banks trading as Banks Brewing. And there's reasons behind that, because if you have bank linked to your business name, you have to get approval from like the Australian Bank.
Oh wow.
Financial
Okay.
institutions because
To
you
be
know,
able to use
bank.
the word bank.
Yeah.
So it was just
You've made a lot of bad choices. haven't
Yeah.
you?
So
terrible.
much red tape everywhere you go.
Also,
yeah.
I would never ever suggest to anyone to start a business with a letter B at the start.
Okay.
B is a terrible logo.
Okay.
It's hard to make a good looking B.
Okay.
It's just a
You've
terrible
spent
letter.
many hours on
Yeah,
this, haven't
yeah.
you?
Oh, I hate every rebrand I've ever done. I still don't like our logo. I'll never be happy with it because it's got a B.
Yeah.
So we have to rebrand again. Name change coming up. So but yeah, it's I think I'm finally happy with where the name's at, because for a long time it really annoyed
Yeah.
me. So
Well, the rebrand I think did suit more the personality and the styles of beers you were making by
Yeah.
that stage anyway.
Yeah.
Because you sort of you had, I guess, some more traditional styles when you first started out in those first few releases, and then as we'll get to after the break, started making the beers that you're synonymous with now, which I think are more modern and
yeah,
So,
I think when we started, and it's probably the same for most businesses, especially in this sort of industry and area. We knew we wanted to make beer,
Yeah.
and we knew the styles that we liked, but I don't think we knew who we were as a brand,
Mhm.
and like what sort of people we wanted to push to, and that didn't really happen for the first sort of 3 years. And there's a couple of specific beers that sort of really, I think, told us this is what people want from us.
Yeah.
This is what we love, and like we should go down this path. And that also tied into like branding as well.
Yeah.
There were some beers that we would release, and the branding, people would just love it and always talk about it, and naming and stuff like that. So our limited releases is still, we throw a dart at the wall and whatever name comes up, that's it. Or like someone will say something as they're walking down the stairs of the office, and I'm like, that'd be a good name right on the list. Like it's a very non-exact science.
Yeah.
But it's there's certain things that have definitely, I think, showed us within those years of sort of what direction we should take this, and sort of told us who we were as a brand.
Well, I reckon that's a good time to take a quick break,
Yeah.
and then we can come back and we start with those two beers that told you who you were as a brand.
Yep,
See you
sounds
after the
good.
break.
Cheers.
Thanks.
It's time now to announce the Bluestone Yeast Brewery of the Month. Bluestone is Australia's leading manufacturer of liquid yeasts, offering brewers a biobank of over 100 strains. Find out more at bluestoneyeast.com.au. G'day, it's Craig here, and I'm here with Will. We're chatting all things Bluestone Yeast Brewery of the Month. Now, the nominations have been flooding in from people all over the country, nominating some of their favourite breweries. Maybe it's the venue, maybe it's the vibe, maybe it's what they're doing on socials or in the community. Mate, it's up to you and I to pick some honourable mentions and some winners.
Yeah, what a job we have, because they are all really good entries from very different sort of breweries from around the country, and also people nominating for really different reasons, which I like to see. One I'll start with that I enjoyed was Boat Rocker Brewing in Melbourne, one of Melbourne's original sort of craft gypsy/contract breweries. And also one of the first breweries to dip their toes into distilling as well. So that they were nominated for what they do. They've always made exceptional barrel aged beers. Their barrel room in the southeastern suburbs of Melbourne is awesome to hang out in. And this person also wanted to shout out their lemon collection. So once a year they ask all residents of their postcode 3195 to bring their backyard lemons in so they can make limoncello, and they have like a limoncello party as well. I know we're drifting off from beer a little bit here, but I like to see it, and I'm sure I'm sure they'll enjoy that shout out.
Oh, that's awesome. And isn't it a bag of lemons gets you a bottle of limoncello? Is that the deal?
Yeah, well, and so backyard lemon trees are seriously profitable in that case. Like I'm kind of looking around the streets of Brunswick. I'll have to forge my identity or something, but if I could bring all these bags in, there's actually quite a few bottles of limoncello I think you could get pretty easily.
Great stuff. Well done, Boat Rocker, for an honourable mention. For my honourable mention this month, I'm gonna give a shout out to a nomination that came in for Bucketies in Brookvale. These guys have been doing a great job for a few years now. They've got this great core range. They're always offering new beer styles and so on. They've got a kind of a really active social media profile, and apparently they do lots of cool videos, sort of behind the scenes interviews with staff and so on. You were telling me about something, Will?
Yeah, I love the Bucketies reels. They're really fun. There was a good one last year where it talked to owner Nick about how many glasses the staff tend to break, and how he's always hearing these glasses shatter and things behind the bar, and calculating the number, the cost of the business in his head, and it's a really fun sort of way he talks about the staff, and yeah, it's a good behind the scenes look of the tap room.
Yeah, nice. Well done to Bucketies. But for our winner this month, and I just want to read part of this nomination out to you. This is for a brewery in Canberra, Cypher Brewing, our winner this month of the Bluestone Yeast Brewery of the Month. They're just doing some great stuff in Canberra, which, as we know, is sort of the home of Capital and Ben Spoke. They're really breaking into that market and making waves.
Sorry, just quickly, they only launched in 2023, and it was interesting when we did our end of year chat that all the people we sort of spoke to in the area kind of said, wow, they've really made themselves stand out in a town that has for a while been known for two really, really good craft breweries. So you kind of
Mm.
wonder where others can fit. It's a great brew pub, but they also have a really frequent release schedule, making some pretty new modern craft beers and things like that.
Well, one thing that caught my attention in the nomination for Cypher Brewing Co. As part of Canberra's National Multicultural Festival, huge event, 100,000 people come along. Head brewer from Cypher, Matt Teal, partnered with local Ngunnawal elder Richie Allen to create a drink called Yuna, Y-U-N-A, which means welcome greetings in the Ngunnawal language. It's a brewed ginger beer infused with native ingredients. They invited the public into the brewery to meet Richie and hear about local country and culture. Then, with permission and guided by Richie, they took off into the nature park surrounding the brewery and foraged for native ingredients to go into the brew. So, if we're talking about reconciliation, about culture, about that kind of sense of community and belonging, I think that's a fantastic little initiative. And this month's win for Bluestone Yeast Brewery of the Month to Cypher Brewing Co. in Canberra.
Yeah, great. I would also say that I believe Cypher may have campaigned a little bit on that one, which is within the rules. You are allowed to do that. You can ask people to vote for you. So yeah, we might see where this snowballs to. Hopefully, we're not running a Gabs 2.0 sometime soon for Breeze.
You never know. You never know. Well, awesome, mate. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks to our Brewery of the Month partner, Bluestone Yeast. Bluestone provides the highest quality liquid yeasts to many of the best breweries in the country. If you'd like to find out more, visit bluestoneyeast.com.au today.
Welcome back. And Chris, do you want to tell us about these two beers that made you know what Banks was?
Yeah, I think while we spoke about one before, was McConaughey's. So a hazy pale, 5.1%, I believe it was back then. Yeah, people just really liked it. It's still our beer Good Times now is sort of a version of that. We've kind of gone away from it in some senses, and then actually bring it back to be kind of more in line with what McConaughey's was in recent times. And it's doing really well. It's probably our highest selling beer. And then also our Cake Eater series was like that beer is definitely one that just, I don't know, it gave us like a bit of a following, and it's still to this day sells out within probably 7 days of us releasing it. It's not what it was during COVID. It was selling out. Well, I think one of them,
Then 7 minutes.
I think one of them sold out in 5 minutes or something. It was crazy. Yeah, it was out of control.
And for the handful of people that might not know what Cake Eater is, because this will become a series, what's the style?
So it's an oat cream double IPA.
Yeah.
It's pretty big,
Yeah.
chewy sort of. I mean, soft and juicy beer, but yeah, it's definitely not a session beer.
Yeah, there aren't many people who've been brewing a beer like that for 6 years and it's still selling out whenever they release it as well.
Yeah, it's got a little bit of a cult following, which is kind of cool. Not very cool. And yeah, it's something that we put a lot of effort into. We try and make everyone, as good or better than the last. We've got a couple of pretty exciting ones this year coming. So yeah, I think people be into them.
And is it, hops you're loving at the moment, or hop products? Like what's sort of driving that side of
So
that release?
Cake Eater specifically, we actually haven't added any of the newer hot products. Cake Eater is pretty much only a T90 and cryo beer. It's something that I like to play around with, but I wouldn't call it Cake Eater just for, to keep it the way it is and keep it itself, at least for the first one or two. We are playing around with a lot of new hot products though, and really liking the results of some of them. Like specific, like Dynaboost, Incognito, Hyperboost is cool too. We've played around with most of them, but they're probably the three that we're sort of using the
What
most.
do each of those do for the beer? So Incognito, is that for the bittering? Is that right? Or
Incognito?
Yeah.
Oh, so it depends what way you use it. We
Yeah.
use it maybe a little bit differently to some. Some people, it's predominantly a Whirlpool product. We use it mostly on knockout, but not in the Whirlpool. So we'll knock out into a tank and then knock out the beer on top of it. We're like something. There's not a lot of hazy beers that we use those products in. We're sort of more using them in the West Coast and the Cali's and stuff like that. And I think all three of them, you could use all three of them as one together.
Yeah.
They all need T90 as well. And then if you want to add cryo as well, great.
Because these are all liquid hot products.
Yeah,
so
all liquid products. Yep.
And what's the benefit there? Is it sort of getting a cleaner or more controllable or more efficiency? What is it you like about them?
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of people would like them for the yield purposes. You don't have as much, trub in the bottom of the Whirlpool or the kettle. We don't really run on that sort of emphasis for us. We're more, it really gives a hop saturation that we like. And if we're not using them in a beer, we will add these days, within the last 6 months, we're adding way more, like 3 to 4 times more T90 or cryo into the Whirlpool or into the boil than what we used to. Like we used to do hazy beers that would have nothing at all in the boil or Whirlpool and just purely dry hop, which to me they're just a little bit lacking these days, especially like a little bit flabby or a little bit lacking. They need a bit of that like sort of texture, like balanced hop profile, but like hop saturation is something that we really sort of trying to push. That it's like a punch of flavor, but then dissipates. So, and that, I think a lot of those hot products give that. They give a real upfront character, but not a lingering character.
Have you tried brewing just with them and without any T9, with any pellets?
No, we haven't with them. From pretty much all the research I've been given from, all that hop supplies. And also we did make a beer a couple of years ago, which was 100% cryo, and it wasn't great.
Okay. No, there's been a couple of, I guess, experimental releases that have come out, and you try them, and they almost taste like fake in a way. Like you need that natural, actual vegetal product in there to make it feel real in some ways. It seems to me.
Yeah. I think it makes it a more complete beer if you've got. I think
right balance,
you don't have to have cryo in every beer, but I think if you're making a hoppy beer, you should at least have T90 in there in some form or another. So, but yeah, they're fun. They're cool to play with. Like I think they're giving, a lot more. We don't necessarily use them in hazy beers because we're not seeing a lot of that like juicy characteristic necessarily in them. I think there's ways to get that. But yeah, they're working really well in West Coast and Cali style IPAs for us.
And I guess with the hazies, having been one of the first onto the hazy beers and the so Nipahs, the oat creams, it would have been almost like Wild West, I guess, in the early days. People trying to work out exactly how to make them the best ways. Like, have there been any sort of key learnings that you've had over the years? Going, there's these processes or these hops or these things work. That's essentially making one of these beers work really well, really pop.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we're still changing.
Okay,
like we have a process that we follow, but if there's something new that we find out about or we think we should try, or we definitely we're definitely open to trying them. We used to use a huge amount of oats. Probably going away from that. We're using a lot more wheat these days. As I said before, we used to not put any hops on the hot side of Whirlpool for a lot of beers. These days we're adding a lot more. It's just making it more, a fuller, more textured beer. But then, obviously there's pretty much every IPA we make has at least a little bit of Citra in it. That's for a few reasons. Citra's like salt. You kind of need it. But also we have a lot contracted, so we're going to get through it.
I think
And
I've
Chris,
got a pull quote for the,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
thumbnail
that
now.
worked well.
Citrus
I was
Lake
going to
Salt.
say, and surely a bit of mosaic as well. But Chris, you sort of alluded to it a bit with kind of tweaking the core range as well. Is that something you sort of always doing? I'm imagining based on your personality, you're kind of moving those beers a fair bit
Yeah,
all the time,
yeah.
even if
Look,
you're happy.
yeah, for sure. No, we're always, as I said like earlier, we can always make it better, and I think we can always make it better, and I don't think we will ever make. No, I know we will never make the perfect beer. Which is cool and exciting. It's it's nice to try new things. When you figure out new techniques or read about it, or find a new hop product that you think, oh, that could work in this beer a lot better. But yeah, it's we're always changing them. We're always keeping them themselves as the core beer that they are. But yeah, if there's a new way, like the amount of times we've changed the hop, like the hop ratio, the actual hops themselves in a core beer, they'll still be in there in some form. But we maybe on our West Coast IPA used to use 15 kilos of Galaxy and 10 kilos of Citra in the Whirlpool, and now that could be no Galaxy, and it's just changing things around to sort of just try and get a better product. We just want to make the most drinkable, hop flavored product or hop filled product we can.
And that would change every year with the hops as well.
Yeah.
So every harvest is different. So you go to make that beer the way you've made it, for the last couple of months, and it's completely different. So there's always things to adjust and adapt, and make sure you're getting the best flavor, and
Or new malt. We often change up, our malt suppliers for different reasons. That we're always happy to try something new or something different. So if someone comes into us and we'll try it in one beer and really like the results, and that could mean, well, unfortunately that supplier doesn't get a lot of malt off us anymore because we're going to go with this one. And it's always changing. But I think like honestly, I think that's what craft beer should be. Like, you want the same thing if you're trying to buy the same beer, but you're not going to complain if it's better.
True.
And that's we're not doing these changes to make them worse. We will always do it to make it better. If it doesn't make it better, we won't sell it. So
Sure. Now, I know you've both been enjoying a lot of West Coast pills, and on the drive down here, we were trying to think. You were very early on, I guess, the hazy beers, hazy IPAs kind of thing, but also back in 2018, I wrote up your Venice Pills, which was a West Coast Pilsner 6 years before we even wrote an article about them, and I guess it was only really last year, maybe the year before, they really started getting traction over here. So how come you made one, almost 7 years ago?
I don't know. I think.
And were you into them back then as well, or were you still in your West Coast IPA phase
I was
back
still
then?
in my West Coast IPA stage then. Yeah.
I think, especially in the early days, we were happy and willing to try anything and everything. And like literally anything and everything. I think we did like brown IPAs and all sorts of stuff that no one wants. But it would have to have come off, as Benny said before, we try and go overseas and see what's going on out there in the world. And I'm assuming it came off a beer that I had somewhere, probably on the West Coast of America. And then, we just came back and put together a recipe and thought we'd give it a crack. And we made that quite a few times here. It was fairly popular. And went out to wholesale. It wasn't, I don't know if people knew what it was. I still don't know if people do. And I really want them to, because it's a style that I hope just grows, in leaps and bounds. It's my favorite thing to drink at the moment. It has been for the last 12 months or so. It's just all the good things. It's lager, which is
well, because you were sort of getting into lagers as well, I guess, before. We probably wrote a piece like the Lager and Excellence maybe 7 years ago, but it seems to take a while for that to really pull through to where we are now, where there was 15, 16 lagers in the Hottest 100, but it used to be one, 10 years ago. So that was something you were doing for a while as well. But
you were doing like Matzens and sort of Helles and Foam and beers like that, sort of more traditional European.
And Penny was going, stop it, I don't like them. Where's the hops?
Enough. Yeah.
she doesn't mind a dark lager.
I don't mind a dark lager.
There's two stops I like.
I don't like beer that tastes like traditional beer. It's great. We still make all those, lagers seasonally. We've got an amber lager coming out next week. And then, we'll do a Vienna lager because we always do every sort of May-ish, and then do some Oktoberfest stuff. And obviously we've got Foam, which is
our core Pilsner, which is sort of taking a little bit of a backseat to our house lager at the moment, which again is a more sort of traditional style lager. But I think when I went to Hop Selection in 22, 23,
23.
Couple of years
23.
ago.
Yeah.
yeah, I kind of fell back in love with hops a bit, and just drinking fresh, sort of like whether it be West Coast Pills or what we call Cali IPA and they call West Coast IPA, because West Coast IPA over there now is so different to what it used to be.
Yeah.
And we actually got a collab coming up in like 2 months with the guys at Humble Sea, who we've done a couple with from Santa Cruz. That just come from a relationship. We went there a couple of times and, you know, then got in contact with them, and then I've met Nick since. And yeah, and he said, yeah, put together a recipe for me, and he said, this is exactly a recipe we would brew, but it's a West Coast IPA, bro. It's not a Cali IPA. I was like, yeah, I know, but we have to differentiate here because there's too much. I think there's still too many people that, you know, like a West Coast IPA has to be this. So, yeah, it's a style that's just so good.
And yeah, well, what is it that two of you love about West Coast Pills? Then what is it that really appeals to you?
I think for me, you get so much hops, but it's still really drinkable.
Mm-hmm.
You're not sort of having one beer and going, oh, that's so intense. Like, I love having a cake eater, but you have one and you're like, all right, the 4-pack will last me one a day for the next 4 days. Whereas this, you can just drink and you still get all that flavour, but you're not, you know, just getting overwhelmed or getting, you know, really that full feeling with oats that you get. So I just love that it's, you know, you're getting all the benefits and you can have a few more than what you normally would.
Yeah, I think so for sure. And I mean, you know, visually they're, you know, appealing looking beer. You know, they're generally fairly clear. They smell amazing if they're, you know, made well. They're, you know, just jumping with hops, and then you get that pack of flavor straight up front, that just punch, and then just super clean. Like, we try keeping pretty lean, but you know, as I said before, I think off air there's a sweet spot that we find for the ABV, which is
they benefit from being a little bit rounder. I think
so.
And the hop oils can contribute to that as well, but they definitely have that bit of roundness.
Yeah, I think the malt
fat,
presence and the alcohol definitely help carry the hops. So it's. Yeah, buy more West Coast Pills.
Because you're not going to stop making them.
It's the best of both worlds.
You can't drink it all.
Yeah.
And how do you keep across what's, you know, what is new and exciting? Obviously, you are going to America a bit. Is it mostly those trips? Are you really scouting and you're keeping across what breweries to check into or suppliers as well? Like, because you do often seem to be very early to a lot of things.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of the trips that we take. I'm, you know, as we said before, I don't brew a lot anymore, so I do a lot of research. Like, you know, some weeks I'll feel like I've done nothing, and literally I've just been on the internet looking at what's going on. You know, whether that be, you know, America, New Zealand, anywhere. So it's a huge part of it is going out and trying new things and seeing what everyone else is doing. Yeah, definitely suppliers, you know, getting sent stuff from them on what hop products are coming. And then, you know, you get your head around how to make beers on your system, and, you know, they'll send you this and go, this will work in this way. And you might pull that apart and sort of change it a little bit to make it work for you guys. But yeah, it's that they have been a lot more helpful in the last couple of years for us anyway. I think maybe I've been a little more open to it. You know, happy for anyone to give me ideas. I'm running out.
The Australian beer industry's guinea pig, ready to take anything.
Well, and you mentioned before, like, upcoming collaboration. I guess that's been one of the key things, I guess, that's developed in the last 10, 15 years within craft beer as a whole, but something you've probably enjoyed, like a lot of collaborations and friendships around Australia but overseas. You know, is that something that you actively look for or were expecting to happen with beer, or just sort of has happened sort of almost by osmosis as you put yourselves out there?
Definitely didn't expect it to happen. And I feel like all of our collabs, I've sort of been pretty like steadfast with them. Recently maybe a little different, but I never really wanted to do a collab with someone that just hit us up and said, hey, we should do a collab. I'd kind of like to make a relationship there and have it like, it's kind of like how we've built this business with like organically let it grow and do that. I like to have the friendship first, and then we go, hey, we should make a beer together because we're mates. I actually, he might not remember this, but Nick from One Drop hit me up the first time he ever hit me up. He was like, "Hey, we should do a collab," and I was like, "Yeah, kind of like to get to know people first." I love Nick. Nick's one of my best mates in the industry now, and he's the absolute man. I'll do anything for him, but at the time, I feel so bad about it.
I think that's also so different to Chris's approach. Like, Chris is very laid back, very quite quiet in nature.
Yeah.
So he's not the sort of person that would rock up, for example, to Humble Sea in America and be like, "Hi, I've got a brewery in Australia. I love you." He'll go quietly, taste
Try the beers
everything,
and then leave.
take some things, leave, and then
Homer
reach out
Simpson
later
into
and
the
say,
bushes.
"Look, yeah, that's very his style." So I think he sort of appreciates that in other people too. Let me show you that I actually really appreciate your beer and I really like what you're doing, and kind of, you know, cite some things I've tasted, and let's have a chat first, and then we can sort of build that relationship from there. And that really just then strengthens the bonds where we're going to weddings, you know, in Queensland with the range guys, and we're, you know, that they are like real mates.
Yeah,
So
some of our best friends.
Yeah.
Friends we met from the beer industry for sure.
And the amount of collaboration, like, is phenomenal. I've never seen another industry where people can call someone up and be like, "I've run out of hops. I know there's none left on the market. Can I buy 50 kilos?" And someone will go, "Yep, have it at the cost. Come and grab it." It's really, really cool. And I think it's kept it, you know, together during, you know, the hard times as well, that people have been able to call up and say, "Our sales are shocking, they're XYZ, we're down 20% too." Okay. And it just gives you a bit of reassurance in, you know, turbulent times, that you're still on the right track. Keep fighting the fight. We're all in it together, and it's really just refreshing.
There's a lot of good people in the industry, and there's sort of, you know, you get reminded of that going, yes, it's really tough, but oh my God, there's good people doing a lot of really good things, you know.
Someone will host a cool party, or someone will put on like Juicy, and we can all go up and relax and have fun and do something like that. Yeah. There's always something going on.
Collaborations are particularly fun when you don't have to brew as well, I imagine.
I don't have to brew here.
No, exactly. You can invite people down that the brewers doing work and just enjoy yourselves.
Did you find that there good opportunities, money sort of for marketing or branding, or just for having a, you know, good time together? Or have you found that you've learned or maybe taught, you know, people new, you know, knowledge or whatever from it, working with other breweries, or trying new ingredients or techniques that you may not have thought of, or they may not have thought of, and they've looked at what you're doing and gone, "Oh, we'll nick that from Chris."
Oh, 100%. Yeah, we definitely, I would say both. We definitely get heaps of, you know, inspo and you know, information about how to do things from other breweries for sure. That's probably a little less now than what it was in the early days. The early days, I'd walk out of a brew day going, "All right," literally writing notes.
What did he say again? Taking photos of the brew sheets.
And I'm happy to sort of give, you know, that same back to anyone that asks now that we do one with. But huge amount of information. The marketing side, obviously, marketing's an interesting one these days. It's not what it used to be on the social platforms, especially for beer. But I think you get a bump from any of that, definitely. And anyone. There's some people on our list still that we really want to do some collabs with, but as I said, I'm not just going to hit them up.
You've got to be mates.
They're going to work out who they are.
At least have a beer first, and then we can talk.
And what about navigating what's been going on in the industry? You did expand a couple of years ago, production. Like, how have you sort of felt you've weathered this time in the industry?
Yeah, it's been fun. I wouldn't say that I'm a overly stressed person, but like last year was probably one of the more stressful years I've ever had, for not just, you know, just some other things going on, but mostly to do with business, and you know, we're still fine, so that's, you know, I think we're lucky in that sense. But it's been a tough one. There's no way to really sugarcoat it, but we've just tried other things. We've looked at places that we, you know, haven't been selling beer, and looked at other avenues, you know, sporting clubs, and, you know, tried a bunch of wineries, and, you know, can we make a beer for these guys and sell it to them and let them use it as their own, or little things like that. And that's definitely helped. It hasn't, you know, made a gap. Export as well has helped a bit. They sort of, you know, they take kind of what maybe that extra bit that we were selling online that we aren't now doing. We don't do huge amounts of export, but you know, there's at least every month an order going to some export. You know?
Southeast Asia mostly.
Yeah, it's Taiwan, Thailand, Japan,
Hong Kong.
Singapore, and China.
Do you get to go and support those export sales as well? Go
We
and
haven't
do
yet.
Okay.
Yeah, I hope we do get
Definitely
to.
a
Yeah,
plan.
yeah.
Yeah.
Some of them. But yeah, we only started doing it probably 18 months ago.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's been good.
And that was probably one of the things, brewhouse upgrade that gives us the capacity to do some of these things, because your margins are quite small in them, but you've got to sort of look at it from, well, if you're making bigger batches of beer, economies of scale help.
Yeah.
So it's sort of about, well, we can send some beer there, and we'd always prefer, we'll never jeopardize the Australian market because overseas necessarily wanted it. It's always, well, we know it's going to be freshest and best here, so we'll always sort of keep that as our number one priority. But it definitely has helped with just keeping that production numbers at good levels.
Ticking over.
Yeah.
Because I mean, at the moment, we probably didn't need the size of the expansion that we did, but in saying that, I think it was the right time to change the brew house over. I think the beer coming out of it's a much better product, so we didn't make the wrong decision there by any means. We're just, we can make a lot more beer. So if you guys drink it, we can make it.
Just glad you didn't put
Bills.
Just glad you didn't put a 50-hectare brew house in, perhaps. Yeah.
That was never going to happen. Yeah.
Well, do we?
We'll
Past,
wrap
present,
up.
future finale.
So we like to sort of look at the past, present, and the future at the end. So first off, I mean, what's one thing you really wish you had have known coming into this?
That we were going to
Making the brewery, not this interview.
probably that we were going to, our bar was going to be such a major part of the business. If we had known that, I definitely would have put the brewery in a different location. Not in a different town or anything like that, but just somewhere that was a little bit more, we get some foot traffic because we're getting up. So we are very much a destination. You have to be coming here or know where we are to come here. So it's it's a huge part of what we are and who we are now. And that wasn't originally the plan. So.
But you have retained the people that came to the cellar door, as loyal customers.
Mostly, we don't see them necessarily as much as we used to. It's funny. We have like every probably 2 or 3 years, it's like a reset of regulars. Like there's, there's still a very core tight, maybe 10 to 20 people that, you might not see them for a while and then they'll come back, and they've been coming for like 9 years.
And they feel like family.
But
really.
there is literally a group. I reckon a group change every 2 or 3 years where you get a new thing of regulars and then they disappear and then they become part of that core 20 that only come back sort of once every 6
Got
months.
a bit to do with children's age.
There's
something
exactly
going on
right.
there.
Exactly
What
right.
age their kids are.
Yeah.
Right. And if someone was coming into the industry now, is there any advice you'd give to them?
I think the way we've grown has been a really good way to do things. I get that you can go in and get a lot of investors and go and put the biggest, best things to start. But I think starting small and taking 2 steps forward, 1 step back, it's a really good way to grow because you can adapt quick. So if things change and, hoppy beers are now out and this is in, you've got the ability to pivot a bit more. And so I think for us, it's always been 2 steps forward, just hire small and start there. I do sometimes get jealous of the breweries that have, started with a huge system and everything's, amazing. But I think having those, and starting small and staying in that small range, you can really adapt to what your customers want. And it's just been a sort of a really good way to grow and feel like we can be really experimental and not have to think, we've got so much of this one beer to move, we now can't make that really cool beer with that new ingredient. So I think for us, the size of that has been given us a lot of freedom to take risks, but also sort of be in like a quite safe zone of, adapting and growing.
Yeah, if we want to try something, we can do it tomorrow. Like if we got a tank available, we can order the ingredients and we can try it next week. So that's also a way to, be one of the first to do something. We don't have to necessarily do it around a production schedule because our production schedule is very loose. So.
And do you have a big wish or hope for beer into the future?
I hope beer gets the fun and back into it that I feel like it had maybe coming into COVID and then even coming out of it. It was a amazingly fun place to be, an industry to work in. Like you'd go to beer festivals and just everyone was having such a good time. The hype around new beers and stuff like that, that might not necessarily be there. I don't think that's going to come back. If it does, great. But yeah, I think if we could get, just the fun and feel back into
Do
the
you think
industry.
the fun sort of partly missing because there has been less occasion to get together? I kind of feel that when you do get people together, it's like, oh, it's
Yeah,
so
this
great
is
to
this.
see you again.
Yeah.
And even just starting this podcast, just talking to people like about their lives and what they do, it's like, oh my god, everyone's so amazing and what they do, and there's all these incredible stories out there, and you always know that, but maybe we've become our own little islands to an extent over the last few years, and you sort of forget, and you just sort of need that reconnection, and and maybe people having more money to spend as well wouldn't
Oh,
hurt.
Yes.
I think
Yes.
that's the big one.
Freeze it through a bit, and everyone will benefit. I reckon, just getting that vibe, and that's what we hope, that like it starts reinvigorating. And I don't know whether that's trying to get some of the younger market involved and how you work with that and get that energy into the market, or whether it's some new crazy things coming out that sort of spark that again, or just successful beer parties and those sorts of things that post COVID were, every couple of months we'd be somewhere around Australia doing those, and obviously the viability of them has dropped a bit, so there's sort of less going on, but a few more of those, and you sort of boost that mood and that like Australian collaboration.
Crafty Pint's 15th anniversary coming up later in the year.
Yeah,
Bit of pressure on us. Let's do it. Parties around the country.
And
Get
West
it going
Coast
again.
Bills.
And a lot of West Coast.
And only West Coast Bills. Chris and Penny, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us, guys.
It's been great. Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
One of the best things about this craft beer industry of ours is the way everyone shares, collaborates, and lends a helping hand when needed. But as so often happens, those good deeds can sometimes go unnoticed. Well, now with the support of Rallings Labels, Stickers and Packaging, who are themselves known for their outstanding service and strong relationships with the industry, we're delighted to give every good beer citizen a bit of well-deserved recognition. We're calling on you to nominate anyone who's gone out of their way to help you out. It doesn't matter how big or small, it's just a wonderful way to give that person or business a shout out and thank you. We'll highlight the best nominees on the Crafty Pint podcast, and lucky winners of the Done a Rallings Good Deed will win a Rallings gift voucher and earn a big thumbs up from friends and colleagues. So what are you waiting for? Give that good deed a shout out. Head to craftypint.com/Rallings and nominate today.
The Crafty Pint podcast is produced and edited by Matt Hoffman. You can get all your beer-related news and reviews on the Crafty Pint website, craftypint.com, and can stay up to date on future podcast episodes via our socials.
We wouldn't be able to produce the podcast or the website, events or festivals we run without the support of the beer industry, whether that's suppliers, bars, breweries or bottle shops. If you'd like to support the show or partner with the Crafty Pint in other ways, please reach out to Craig via the details in the show notes.
And if you're a beer lover who'd like to support what we do, you can join our exclusive club for beer lovers, the Crafty Cabal. Visit craftykabal.com for more.
And until next time, drink good beer.